everyone, welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I am Richard Carlton here. Welcome to it's Monday. It's Monday off the hook Monday, kind of crazy at fmtrain.tv, where every day we're doing fun, awesome FileMaker stuff. Frankly, learning from you, helping you where we can, finding out awesome things that we can do with the FileMaker platform to make greater projects, making our customers successful, whether you're an outside consulting developer like I am, or you're an in-house person like some of you, making your customers successful with the FileMaker platform is a big deal. So here is the latest scoopage. So for the next couple days, we are going to be covering a conversation about FM Starting Point. So I have a little bit of an audible today because my understanding is that the Starting Point will be available for all of you tomorrow morning. They were trying to get it done today. It's not quite done. However, I have a real high value presentation for you today. You're going to dig. I have not done it live before, I don't believe. We're going to be covering the data migration tool in detail today because some of you are going to go, hey, Richard, how do I update all my data out of one FileMaker file into another FileMaker file? Now, there's some caveats with this, but it is pretty cool. So we're going to cover that in great detail. So today, tomorrow, and Wednesday are going to be starting point days. Tomorrow is going to be actually taking it apart and digging through it. Wednesday's kind of an open-ended day. I'm not sure what we're doing entirely. If you folks have suggestions about what you would like to see done with starting point, that's fine. Thursday, Christian's going to be talking about hacking starting point and bang out new modules, things like that. I will leave it up to him, but it's always good content when he is here. Friday, we have Monkey Bread plugin. He's doing PDF management again. Not so much again like it's like repetitive, but I think if you cover digital document management and PDF management one day a week, you just reserved a day a week for that. I think you would have a very busy, successful live stream because that, even though some of us know all there is to know about PDF and document management, a lot of us forget about it. We don't know. So that'll be Friday with Christian Schmidt. Let's talk about real quick what's going on. So if we go to FM Starting Point website, we are actually going to be updating this website as well. In fact, some of the edits are already in here. We actually, and I'm going to say this almost for legal purposes, but we have been calling FM Starting Point since 2020 by the name of the year. Some of you will at some point figure out why I'm doing this, but I'll just leave this open-ended for the moment. You can speculate on your own if you wish. But back in the day, we decided to quit calling our product by version number and just give it the year name. That way we could easily keep track of what releases which. So we built FM Starting Point. The light version was updated for 2022. We updated kind of this late build, the standard and enhanced versions. And we thought they were done, and there wasn't a lot of screaming and stuff going on. Whenever you build software, if you're a product manager, if you don't have a really giant QA effort going, that's indication one that there's a problem. Two, you don't hear anyone yelling about the bugs that are in it. Then you probably have a bunch of undetected bugs, which is what happens. So we've got a major update going. This would be what we call largely a quality of life update. We are squishing a ton of bugs in Starting Point. We're going to give these all to you folks tomorrow if you want to crack them open and look at them. If you have some thoughts about not necessarily features to add, because some of you will give me a very long list of features that you think would be great for the community. It happens to be the that your boss gave you to do that you don't want to do. So we can't help you with that too much, but if you have actually legitimate bugs or you have questions about design, things like that, that's all the stuff we're going to dive in tomorrow, what we're doing with the product tomorrow. Should be fun. So anyway, the upcoming version, I don't know if they updated this page yet. Yeah, we're coming. So you have the light version, you have the standard version, this will say 2023, and the enhanced version, which is kind of this paid variant. And then we also have the localization issues, which is the 4 versions of English. People always say there should only be one English. Yeah, well, yeah, that ain't always the case, right? There's different variants of English, especially in these various countries in terms of phone numbers and addresses and taxes and VAT and things like that. So there are little variations in these. We've taken that into account. So you'll see most of all this tomorrow. Now, in the meantime, let's talk about the data migration tool. So the data migration tool is something I've got great training for. I've got my laptop over here. I kind of had gone back through it. I shot a bunch of videos during the FileMaker 17 and 18 time period on the data migration tool. The data migration tool is something that's available from Claris. And what this allows you to do, if I make it really big and I go to the top up here, the data migration tool allows you to rapidly move data between two different copies of a very similar FileMaker file. And so what I'm saying is that if you had a copy of Starting Point, for example, and you were working on an updated version of it and you wanted to make it live, you can at very high speed move the data from file A to file B. It's a very, very important idea. Now, the rub is it doesn't move schema. So it doesn't move field definitions or scripts or anything like that. Claris has been toying with that. They have yet to actually finish that technology. It's not done, much to our frankly, of all the things in the world they could have invented to promote the platform forward to get the developers behind it, they managed to work on things that the developers largely don't care about and ignore the things that we really wanted, such as life. So the ability to the XML move the code from point A to point B is still in what we would call early beta, and we all kind of use it. That's what add-ons are all about, right? And it's why add-ons are a little bit sticky and don't always work great because it's not finalized. So that is the idea of moving schema from point A to point B. We're talking about moving the data, not the schema. So the data is everything the users would use in browse mode, right? So a user types stuff in, they type data in, they take a picture and put it in a container, drag and drop a PDF. That's all user-facing data. That's what we're talking about moving from point A to point B. So in a lot of development environments, you're going to build in the FileMaker platform, maybe on a development version while your users are using the live one. Now, if the user group is fairly small and you're not too worried about breaking something, like if you had a medical application, maybe you wouldn't want to do this, or if you had one that was running a nuclear power plant, something kind of important, then what you would not want to do is maybe make live data changes in there, because if you screwed something up, something bad might happen. So what you do is you have an offline copy of it or a copy that's on a development server, something like that. And what you do is you, as you think it's done, then the idea is to migrate the data from point A to point B. So if I come over here on this right here, this is these are like the master source files right here that you can see on my screen right here. These are clones. The idea is that the data migration tool, which happens to be a command line tool, right? You heard me correct. It's a command line tool, and I hate the command line, but this tool is so awesome that I'm willing to suffer through the command line stuff, right? So the idea is it takes the data out of the customer live file that they've been using live. You shut the file down, so it's no longer being hosted. In this case, I've moved it down to my local computer right here. And then you make in my case, I made a clone of the file, but this could be the copy that you're working on with new improvements, with new layouts and new scripts and additional fields and tables. But so what you do is your new version should be kind of structurally, its heritage or its history should have come from the file that the users are using with the live data. That makes sense. So the idea is that if you were going to build a system, you duplicate the live one the customers are using, you come over here, you open it up, you're going to put in your admin, you're going to put in 1 2 3 4, you're going to come over here, you're going to put data in here, add some records in here, do this sort of thing. But you go into layout mode and you're like, oh, this popover is not good, and I'm going to move this, and I'm going to move this, and I'm going to take this, do this, and do this, and do this. So you make all these modifications, and then what you do is right before you go through this process, you make a clone of the new file. So what we have so let's talk about terminology. We're talking about the source files over here, the source files. These are the files which probably have the older schema, but the current user data that the users are using. So that is a source file. The target or destination file will be the newer file that, for whatever reason, you've decided that they need to move to, right? So you made improvements to it. Maybe you're rolling back because you got to go backwards into a previous version, something like that. But the idea is that you're going to take that file, you make a clone of it. You make a clone of the file. It's very important that it's a clone. It's a fresh clone. Claris in the documentation calls it a true clone. So if I want to bring these up And so the idea is that this is a document right here that's a PDF out of Claris's support. If you go to Claris's, if you do a search for them, they also have this overview of in their help documentation. So if you go to clarishelp.com, this link right here, this is the overall guide. What I'm telling you right now is verbally walking through what this guide says, but I'm trying to help you do this because A, this is really fast, it's really fantastic, and there's some subtleties in here you need to be aware of. So for those of you who missed this, we're gonna go deep into Starting Point tomorrow with an update. But what we're doing today is talking about this data migration tool. So the idea, here's the deal. Historically, when you build and you want to move data from file A to file B, it's always been a giant pain in the ass. That's why people like me who've been around a long time, we want to work on the live file. The problem is there's times where that's really dangerous because the customer has some sort of process. You're building some, it's not like you're moving a little field or nudging a couple pixels. You could do that. No one would know, no one would care. But if you're like adding a table or renaming a table, doing stuff like that, you could break stuff. And so you want to do that in a copy of the solution running on the server, maybe on the same server, but it's not the one that the users are actively using. So you have your own development copy. That's what this is all about. Then once it's done, you take both of them offline, you're going to run this process, and out comes the new file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it over here with the 206 calculation deal right here. I'm going to, because I already ran a test on this to make sure it would work. This one, so this one's a pretty small file. If I move myself out of the way, it's over here. It's 3.5 megs. I'm going to do that one. This one down here, I would do this for you. This one is 16 gigabytes of text data. It's a big file, and not container data, just the text data is 16 gigabytes. And so I ran this earlier. It's about 25 minutes. I don't want to blow up 25 minutes of the live stream watching this thing go. But think about how long it would take you to move. There's like 15 million records in there. Normally you script this and you say, export out of here and re-import in the other file, or you have both files talking to each other and they do an import. You know how long it takes to import 15 million records? Days with an S. Not one day, multiple days. Okay. You could do that whole thing instead of days with an S in 25 minutes. It was pretty awesome. So real quick, from a big picture standpoint, people say, well, A, there's a command line here. It's a pain. Yes, I understand that. We're going through this with you so you learn how this works. However, if you run a lot of servers, if you build a vertical market application, Scott Kane, any other ones that build vertical market apps, you have multiple customers who have bought your product. You're supporting multiple servers with multiple customers who bought your product, and you work on a new version. You work on a new version of Scott Kane's amazing application, and then you want to roll it out to everyone. You're going to want to use this technology. Well, if you go to 360 Works, deploy product, and I have a relationship with the 360 people. They don't pay me. I just use their stuff, and when it breaks, I call them and they fix it, which is great. It's kind of like Christian Schmidt, right? Really great, responsive person. So as a result, they have this deploy product. You put it on each of the servers. In fact, Christian Olson did this with his customer and a customer somewhere in Singapore, I think. And with the access, it was like the millisecond latency conversation we had from last week, where it was like 300 milliseconds to Mumbai, India. I think Singapore is about as bad, right? And so the issue is that he couldn't really do the work remotely, so he did it locally, and he had to find a way to push the new file to the server. So with 360 Works Deploy, they take this core engine. These down here is the core engine. This is the one for 19.6. This is the core engine for FileMaker 18. I was doing a performance test, and the new one's actually faster. 19.6 is the fastest one we have. And what's interesting about this is that 360 Works Deploy, they take this Claris engine right here and they drop it into their app. And so what it does is that you log into the 360 Works Deploy, you give it your new file, and you say go, and you've already given it, that file, all the servers it's supposed to talk to along with the credentials. You've already got all the set up. You just do it, you drop it in there, hit the button, and it goes off to each of the servers and runs an update. It makes a copy of the file, shuts the file down, it boots all the users off. It runs this process you're about to see without any command line. It's just drag and drop, but it's talking to the servers doing it for you. Now, the software's not cheap. It's like $1,800 or $2,000 or whatever it is. But it's worth its weight in gold if you have to do this on multiple servers. I'm doing one file right here, right now. I wouldn't buy this for one file, right? But 360works deploy, I think the auto or the robo or motto or hotto or whatever the name is from Proofgeist, Martha Zink's company. I think that that product uses this too. Although I've never used that product, so I can't vouch for it. I can vouch for the 360works one. We use it. It works great. So the idea is that that is where it recycles what you do, but it does it on multiple servers. It even has a rollback function where you go, that latest update was really bad. You press a button, and it unwinds it against all the servers. Super awesome. So let's go through this. The biggest
We
schmingles.
have a quick question.
Yeah, read that to me, Margaret. Read that out loud.
The biggest question would be, and I know the basic answer, but I want to know your complete thoughts on it. Would this make sure that there is no corruption on the data moved in this way?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So here's the deal with what it does. It does. This does not. This tool is a high-speed transport. It's like Star Trek. They have, you know, you transport one or two people off the pad. Imagine I go Enterprise, beam up the entire 5-story building and move it from point A to point B. That's what this is. This is a building grade transporter. It transports 500, 1,000 people in a block. It doesn't go in the building and say, hey, do you want to move? Are you feeling healthy today? Are you sick today? Maybe I should not move these 5 people. It moves the whole damn thing. So, and it doesn't get in there and do tight analysis on it. Therefore, it's not going to prevent you from moving corruption if the corruption is in the data side. Remember, there's data side and the schema side, two different sides of the FileMaker platform. In some SQL Oracle systems, when you build a solution, you have the data side where the data is in one side and you have the schema on the other side. People try to replicate that with that I'm spacing out on that. What's the design methodology for that? But data separation model, okay? That data separation are people in the world of FileMaker trying to pretend they have an Oracle solution, which they don't. Doesn't mean that people don't want to try. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm not going to get into that. But one of the things that people do is they use data separation to try to prevent them from running updates. This right here actually legitimately provides you a high-speed update process, so you don't have to try crazy like data separation, okay? Data separation, I just grossly dislike it because the assumptions that people make about it are never what happens in real life. What I'm going to show you here is real. So this is the real meal deal. So yeah, so it's not individual beam out, it's beaming out the whole building. And therefore, it's not going to do any sort of serious triage. So here's the way this works. So let's pretend that, and I did this one over here. This one was, like I said, this one was 15 gigs, millions and millions and millions of records, okay? Trust me, it works. We don't have the time in the day to go through that. So let's start with this 206B value calculator. For those of you who are early to Discord, you've watched the shenanigans with me trying to procure a 206B. It's a real problem right now for whatever reason. So I'm going to the file's not running. I'm going to duplicate the file. I'm going to call it the new development version. I'm going to say new dev, and I don't have spaces in here because I don't want to have to deal with spaces in the command line. Okay, so now I've got the new dev version. I open this up, admin 1, 2, 3, 4, and so I got this running locally. Now it's important to understand, side note, if there are images in the container, like locally stored inside the FileMaker file, they will be part of this bulk data move. Otherwise, if they're external, this process ignores them, if that makes sense. So if I'm going to close this real quick, I'm going to move this back over here to this folder. I'm going to move these items here just a little bit over here. So you see, is this one here? Bell206B calculator. Okay, that's the container. Let me put this in here. Okay, let me open it up again. So these are the containers. They're set for secure storage. I think I only have like one record in here. Let me double click this, bring this up again. Admin 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the containers are working, right? So the idea is that when you're going to do this process, if the containers are external, you're going to kind of leave them in their place, do the text user data in the data file, really the FMP12 or .claris file. Then once you're done, you're going to drop that back on the server, right? So here it is, it's connected. I was looking at this helicopter. These people in Texas, they're high as kites. That helicopter is about a $380,000 helicopter. They're trying to make a $100,000 profit on a giant flying piece of shit. Here's the deal. So we're over here and like, yeah, I don't really like this portal here. So we're going to go over here to layout mode. In fact, what I want to do is I want to come over here, and I'm in this aircraft table here. It's going to be the model, but we're going to call it make, M-A-K-E, and I can't say the word and because and's a reserved word in the world of FileMaker, because I could say and right here, and I could change it, and it's going to give me this warning. Hey, don't use that. It's going to cause problems. So I cancel. How about vertical pipe? I think of vertical pipe. So it's a shift in the backslash. There's a vertical pipe. Change. No complaints. So I changed a name right here. Got it? I say okay over here. The name is, it says make and model right there. Move that out of the way. I'll make this a little bit, I'm going to hide. See, this is in the way. So you click over your objects, you click the eyeball, it hides it temporarily. I can click over here back on the make it bigger, make it red so we can all see this. This is the one thing I just changed. It says Bell 206B3. Okay. Now, I changed the field name. Very cool. Now I'm going to say, I've been working on this file for weeks and weeks, and I think it's ready to give it to the customer. Okay, so shut the customer's file down. It's right here. That's their file. It doesn't have this change in it. My file is running. I'm going to go and close it down. Close that. My new file is right here. So there's the new dev file right there. But I need to move the data from here into here. If I bring the file down here, you're like, oh, that's really good, except I said you had to make a clone, okay? Super important. Double click this, open it up. Once again, admin, 1, 2, 3, 4. The links are broke. But that's that field that we changed. The links are broke. In order to fix the links, I'm going to close the file, move it, reopen it, but I'm not worried about it because we know those will work if I put it back in the correct place. File, save a copy as right here, and you get a clone. A clone is it's like if I put you on a diet and only fed you salad for a week and cleaned out your system and everything, then you would have basically a clone. It strips all the data out of it. It's very therapeutic. It has a lot of, that right there is almost a live stream. What the hell is a clone file? That right there is almost a live stream in and of itself because it's really impressive what it does. It resets all the internal, a lot of the internal record keeping, things like that. So I'm going to hit save. It saves it up here. So I'm going to close that. So that was the dev file I was working on. I'm going to move it up. Here's the clone right here. Okay. So the sequence of events is that's the customer file. That's the source. We want to move the data into the destination. I'm going to name this very easily. I'm going to call it value calculator underscore clone. Now, here is the deal. I'm going to just duplicate this and move this over here. If I have a clone file and I open it up, okay, and I go through the process of opening it up, it's still a clone file. However, by you opening it up, you've tracked your muddy footprints through this file. It looked at your operating system. It looked at your languages that on your computer, whether you're English or you've got Hebrew or Chinese or whatever the hell version language you have. It made notes in there, made some adjustments in there. You've already affected the file. So if I close this file now right here, this file's been opened right here. It's a clone, but it's not what I would call a fresh clone, in quotes. So it's very, very important to understand that there's a difference between a clone that you've opened once, but you haven't really added data to it, but it's still been altered by opening it. It's like sealed in a super sanitary sealed baggie and no germs, perfectly germ free. You open it up, you haven't like really done anything with it, but by you opening it up and letting your air and your hot doggy breath in there, you've tainted the file a little bit. So we've done this in the training videos. We talk about doing a clone that's not really a real clone. It'll give you an error message, what'll happen. So I'm going to skip that part of it. And so I say, so this is one I opened. It's the doggy breath clone that's not really a true clean clone. I'm going to get rid of it. This one here has never been opened. This is the dev one. So the dev version gave birth to this one. That's our end user file. So we want to take these two here and kick out the new super duper duper amazing version. So let's talk about this real quick. So if I go back to the data migration tool, and I have these docs here that have been given to you. The short version of this conversation is that we're going to be writing a command that looks like this, and I'm going to walk us through creating this, okay? I'm going to do this slow. This conversation is not for Kyle at all. I'm not picking on Kyle. Any of you who love to do command line, Larry the Marine, who is not Larry the Marine, my other Marine. That guy is a super code guy. He's tougher. He's better at JavaScript than some JavaScript people I know, right? That's Mark Johnson, right? So any of you who are serious command line people, or like Jacob Taylor, my server guy, right? You don't need to watch this. You can figure this out. I'll seem very slow to you. I'm doing this for the rest of the human species who don't like to use forward slash backslash stuff. If I liked the command line, I wouldn't use a freaking mouse, right? I would just do command line all day, but there I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this. Now, keep in mind, let's talk about a couple things we're going to do up on the front end. So we're going to have to identify the source file, where it's at. We're going to have to identify the source file account, password. So that's admin1234. Then if it has EAR, encryption at rest, right? We're going to have to put the key in here of the source file. Then you'll have the path of the fresh clone, not the doggy breath clone, okay? And then you have the account and password for that. So these basically are 4 items that go together. These are 4 items that go together. That's really the minimum that you need to make it work, and that's what we're going to do. If you try to run this again and there's already a target there, you can have it overwrite whatever. That's part of this. There's also options to how you handle custom value lists, whether you allow the custom value list to come across. At the end of the day, this is one of those things that would be specific to your needs in your situation. Ignore accounts, right? So normally what happens is that right here it says ignore accounts. If we put this in, uses the account names and passwords, encryption password from the clone instead of the source file. So what happens is that, say that you're working as a developer in this new 206 file, and meanwhile someone else adds new users to the customer file. When you run this process, it's going to move over all the accounts and passwords. You can't see the passwords. You can't really see the, well, you could see the accounts, but you could never see the passwords. It moves all that over so you don't lose anything. It moves over the custom, any custom value list they've set up, all their username passwords, moves those over too. It also does this font checking thing generally. Unless you're changing platforms or changing computers, probably not going to have a problem with this. In fact, well, we'll get into this momentarily. Then there's the output data that comes from this. As you run this command line file, if those of you who watched our JavaScript training, we would run these commands and it would be giving you telemetry, like, log like this, and this, and this, and this. And by default, its feedback is in normal mode, normal. It's like medium level feedback. This right here is like me. It's like chatty Richard. He just talks too much. Tell him to shut the hell up. So this is super chat. This is right here when you tell Richard, my wife tells me to shut up, okay? I'm talking too much. This is Richard, shut the hell up. And then this has an option for rebuild indexes and reevaluate. These are new. As you can see, they were introduced fairly late in the game, but those are obviously people need these. Now, why is this so great? This process, because it's doing, remember we talked about, one of you asked a question, Margaret, if you have a question, make sure they ask the question. It's beaming up not individual people. Like, we have the Star Trek transporter, and do we want to beam up Claris? She's on hot standby, ready to go. We beam her up? No, we want to beam up a whole building with 5 or 100 or 1,000 of Clarises, all in one block function. That's why it's so fast. It uses multiple processors in parallel. In fact, right before this broadcast, I picked up the phone, called Clay Mackel at Claris. And he's sick today. We wish him the best if he's watching. But Clay was one of the originating engineers of this tech. And he says that fundamentally it works about the same as it did in 17, but they keep adding refinements to it, making it better. And what this thing does is that, whereas FileMaker Pro normally is a single processor process. So if I come down here to the bottom left, you see all these processors running. That's because I'm recording this. I'm broadcasting on Discord, Twitch, and YouTube. There's a lot going on here. These processors are all pretty busy. I'm on a M1. This is the Macintosh Mac Mini M1 with 16 gigs of RAM and a solid state drive. So it's pretty good tech. I think the newest computers M2, it might be 10% faster, but this is about as fast as it gets for a basic business user. I think you could, like I said, squeeze out another 10% if you got the M2. But what it does is that every table that it has to process, because this, as we're going to do this file, and it's not too many tables, but like Starting Point has like 30 tables. So if you ran this process on it, it would take Starting Point, and each, like, contacts would be running in here, and accounts would be running down there, and products in here, and then projects and staff, and then line items for invoices and line items for estimates. And so it starts assigning things to different processors to take care of for you, totally in parallel. FileMaker Pro, the client level, doesn't run anything in parallel. It's not a parallel processing kind of stuff. It's kind of single-threaded, single-minded, kind of just does one thing at a time. Does it fast, but does one thing at a time. So the idea is that this is kind of like FileMaker Pro with the import command, but because it's moving whole buildings at a time and using all the processors in parallel, that's why you could move 15 or 16 gigabytes in 25 minutes from one file to the next file. And if you're doing it with like the 360 Works deploy tool, you wouldn't even have to do the command line. Just drag and drop, press a couple buttons with your mouse, and it would be automatic. So it's pretty great. So let's walk through this. So up here is my cheat sheet. This is what we're going to build, but I'm going to walk through this with all of you. So what I need to do is I think that I've got these items set up. We want to kick out the new file. Margaret, questions along the way? Either people are
No,
lost or
we have a lot of people here. Like, I see a lot of people, but I assume that they're all good.
okay. I
Questions,
don't
YouTube,
hear any
Twitch,
squealing. So if we don't hear squealing, that means you're
Discord.
all dead or
Yeah, we've got like 20 people on YouTube, 20 people on
well,
Twitch, and
for
like
all of you
30
who
people.
missed this, the new Starting Point will have it tomorrow. But if you're moving a lot of data between versions of FileMaker, you need this. I've not talked about it before because it's kind of technical, and I'm afraid half of you are going to hang up when you watch me do this because it is kind of like, oh, you're using terminal. Why are you using terminal? So here's the terminal. Pop this up on the Mac. It's an application. It's in your, I think, your utilities folder on applications. So this is it right here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the path of this file here. I have put this on my desktop. It's the way I do it in real life. And then once I'm done with the desktop, I put things in folders and put them away on Dropbox. I'm going to drag the migration tool up here and drop it. So there it is right there in one line, okay? I put 196 on mine. Normally, when you download from Claris, if you're part of their developer program, this is a free tool that you get. I mean, they kept changing how this worked. I don't think it's that hard to get this tool on Claris's website. But I'm a partner. I pay them, well, more than normally $500 a year. I think we get it as part of that as a benefit. So here is the first line. Okay, then I come over here and I want to identify the source, account, password for the source. So I'm going to grab this. This is the command, Command C, copy it. I'm going to come over here and can I paste it there? Oh, there it is. I pasted it, then space, and then I need the path to the file. So the source file is this one right here. I'm going to drag and drop this up here, click like that. And so then what we have is, so that's the path, right? And then we're going to go down and I'm going to do account and then password. So here's account space admin space, and then it's dash src underscore pwd. Did I do that right? src pwd. Yeah, I'm going to probably try to copy and paste these so I don't blow it. So that is the source side. Now I want to say the target or the destination, right? But here's the clone. So here's the clone. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste that. I have the clone already down here. I'm going to drag and drop that right. Can I do it like that? Is that going to butcher it? Oh, no. Yeah, see, that's the problem with that. That's why I try to build these. So I try to click in here and like command line it's command line hell. So what I have to do is I tend to try to build it over in a text editor because I like to cheat. So let's do that. I'm going to create a new one over here. I'm going to do it over here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab all this. I'm just going to build it in here. And I'm going to say font. Oh, the font's 20. That's perfect. Great. Here we go. So we're going to build it here, and then when we butcher it up, we will just edit it here, and then we'll copy paste back over here and try it again. So I'm just going to get rid of all that for now. It won't even let me. It's just going to lose its mind. Okay, it's giving me the common commands for this, right? So there we go. So I'm gonna go back over here and build it. So clone, there's the clone to the, oh, it's the clone, ONE.FMP12, I believe that's the clone. Then we have dash, here, the same things are right here. Dash account is admin, dash password, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I think this is done. Now you could come down here and put some other stuff in here. We could play with verbose if we want, but I'm going to leave it in normal mode, okay, for the moment. And then, so now that I have it over here, I'm going to select all, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come over here to this, and you're going to see this thing start chewing. Now it's a pretty small file. It's only 3.5 megs, so it won't take it very long to blow this out. So I'm going to paste it, and then 1, 2, 3, hit return. It's running. And it actually finished already. That's how fast it did that. So what it does up here, let's talk about this. And we're going to talk about the missile lock. So we haven't talked about missile lock at all. We need to talk about missile lock. No questions? Maybe David's going to ask about missile lock. So, but real quick, here's what it says. And this is the normal, this is not overly chatty. This is not silent. This is that in between. And so so it moves over the privileges, it moves over the custom value list, it moves over the font list, it's mapping the tables. So first it identifies a match in a table called those should be SB, service bulletins, and airworthiness directives. And then it finds, and then it does a block migration. That is the whole building Star Trek transporter. It's an import, but not at the individual level. One person, it's the whole damn building. So it's a block building transporter. Then it says, oh, found this table, performing a block transport. Then found this aircraft, block transport, block, 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 block. Okay. It does block transports on everything. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this is the idea of missile lock. So how does it know what matches what? This is like the hugely important part of this. And they talk about this on the web page here. I'm going to bring it up so you can see it, but I'm going to verbally, and if you watch my training videos, they're actually animated really well. It's another great reason to buy and purchase the training videos, right? Because it's all in here. All this training right here is already in there, and it's already animated. But strictly speaking, I'm just going to bring this up. So if you go to fmtraining.tv, you press the training bundles, especially the plus or the complete, you get this training is a section in the pro course on this. So let's talk about this right here, data migration tool. So we gave you this link already. This is Claris's help on this. Migrate your data. You got to do this, and this does work on Windows and Linux too, but I'm doing it on the Mac. Recognize this once again. Here's the same ideas right here. Same stuff here, and then it's supported, all these supported in the localization, right? External container data. Once again, the data migration doesn't migrate to container data that's stored externally. So it just doesn't, because it doesn't have to. There's no point to that, right? I explained it. If you want to catch it again right here, that's fine. Now here is missile lock. This should say migration missile lock, right? I'm too close for missiles. I'm switching to guns. This kind of conversation. So here's the deal. Once again, let's just focus on this one right here. If those of you who've been watching the training understand that every object in the world of FileMaker has a hidden ID number that you cannot see. Claris has started to expose this with some of their new XML Star Trek Transporter add-ons. But the idea is that, have you ever noticed that you go into FileMaker Pro and you rename a bunch of scripts and a bunch of fields, and the application magically keeps working? It doesn't break it endlessly into tiny bits. That's because Claris doesn't give a about what you name your fields. Blue Rover 5, for the contact name, it doesn't care. It knows that there's a UUID ID key under there, and that's what it's using to identify it. So what this tool does, the data migration missile lock, shall we say, it's going to lock on to the name that you used and backstop it with an ID match. Okay. If that, and it applies this at the table level, then it applies it at the field level. Then if it doesn't get a match for something, so it's going through the source material and trying to match it on the other side. If it can't get a match with the name and ID, then it goes by name only. By name only. And so say that you deleted contact first name, and then you put the field back in, but you give it the exact same name. Now remember, if you delete an object and then you put it back in, not Command Z put it back in, but you actually create a replacement, it will have a new ID under the hood, right? Remember every time you create an object in FileMaker, like a record in FileMaker, it gets a unique ID. Every field definition and every table schema element has its own unique ID. If you delete it and you create a new one, it'll have a different ID. So in that situation, the only way it can get lock-on, missile lock, is if the names are identical. So if you delete a field and you put it back in and you change the name, there'll be no missile lock at all. It will skip it. Lastly, remember the demo that we did? I changed the name of make or model, and I put make vertical pipe model. So I changed the name of the field. So this won't work because it's both of those. The name didn't match, but the under the hood ID match. So as I rename elements, it still does missile lock. Code to Go says, I think it's now a free tool for anyone in the community. Yeah, so if you create an account with FileMaker Claris community, get in there, it would make sense that they would give it away for free. Custom changes to starting point will migrate to the new file. David Angel, this tool is a data migration tool. It's not called the schema migration tool. It moves the data. So you're responsible for managing the schema. Claris has yet, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, to give us the full schema upgrade experience capability that we've been asking for, that they started building in FileMaker 16. They quit working on that. They've been working on Studio. We need this kind of capability with schema. And they've kind of hacked it together a little bit, but I don't think people really use it because it has issues. It's not done. It's not completed. So in an ideal world, you would be able to identify schema that you wanted to move from file A to file B. This is just a bulk moving tool. So you're managing your own schema controls, if that makes sense. This is just a bulk data movement tool. It's super useful. My team uses this all the time. And once again, it's used in the 360 Works deploy. So once again, the data is migrated only if you get one of these three matches, okay? As a general rule, I'm just saying as a general rule, there's one exception here. As a general rule, you need to be an admin to do this. Claris created an external privilege that allows someone without admin credentials to do this, but that would be kind of interesting. Just remember that if you have someone who wants to do this and they're not an admin, there is a provision for that. But pretty much anyone who is doing this kind of surgery should be basically God level security on the file, ideally. So these are the missile matching rules. So based upon this, so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to, it created the new file over here. Here's the new one it created. So we ran this a second ago. It created. So I open this up, and remember, it's not in the folder with the containers, so the containers will be broke. Here it is right here. This is the new one over here. Notice the data is in here, and it's got this data. It moved the data over here. It moved this. It did a lock. But so let's make it a little bit more fun. I'm going to delete this one. We're going to try it again. This time we're going to say, hey, we want it to be verbose. So I need the verbose command. -V is verbose. Okay, so I'm going to put that on the end right here. So I have it, copy all that, come back over here. I got rid of the one file. It's going to pop it probably up there again. But this time when it blows through this, it's going to be like Richard can't shut up. He's just talking and nothing can stop him. All right, we're ready for this. Everyone brace for impact. Paste, run. So now it's, yeah, so here, it wrote a freaking book. So here's the command we started here. It says source file is this. Yes. Clone file is this. Target file is going to be this. So it's like verifying the data you gave it in that terminal command. Then it says starting this. We're matching. See right here, it's going through each and every item. Match the full access. Match this. Admin is not changed. Hughes is not changed. So then what it does, it says mapping tables. It match this table, match this table, match this table, match this table. Coming down here, then it starts doing field match. So somewhere in here, so it says these all look good, so it's going to do a block migration. Once again, that's the transport of the whole building. But somewhere in here is where we redid. Okay, here's the tables right here. Then the fields start right here. And then it starts doing these. These are probably being done in the order they were created in FileMaker, right? Normally field definitions, you normally see fields alphabetically, at least I do. But I got a gut feeling that looking at these names here, looks kind of alphabetical. So that's that. Then yeah, aircraft. Okay, aircraft is the one that changed, right? Remember we had the model, make a change or whatever? Somewhere in here. Oh yeah. No, yeah. See, then there's C compressor. Yeah, so it's in the order they're created. Oh, here it is. Matching source, model, and target field, make and model by internal ID. That's the one piece I changed. So if you do verbose mode, it can come back and tell you what happened. At the end, it gives you a lot of telemetry. It says, I migrated 3 accounts, changed none. Fonts, fine. Tables migrated. Tables not migrated. I like the not part. That's great. Fields not migrated, 0. Fields trigger with recalculations, and those are options. Retriggering and indexing are optional, but not migrated fields and not migrated tables. I like that. That is super cool. That's the cool part about this. So if I was done with this, then I would take this new file. So this is the original with the user data, the new one with the schema changes I've made, the new completed merged with the user data and the new schema, which we want to give to the customer. I would put that back into the folder here. These are the containers. I put that, make sure FileMaker is not, yeah, it's not really running. Put that back in here, open it up. I would probably change the word migrated to something else. Admin, open it up. And so now everything works again. So the fact that I actually had to kind of do this, moving the files and stuff, it's a single file, it's not that big of a deal. But if you had to do this for 20 customers because they are all paying you, Scott Kane, to use your solution, I'm just picking on Scott because I know he makes a vertical market application, then doing this and identifying this once to the server and then pressing the button and having it push it off to all the FileMaker servers and to roll and update all of them. So it's doing this whole thing automatically for you, but it's doing it like on 10 or 20 or 100 servers or whatever, right? I mean, that's a big deal. So the plan for tomorrow, since no one has questions here.
Oh, question. Migration will eliminate bugs.
No, you're a professional developer, David Angel. You eliminate the bugs. If the users are using this file and you're working on a copy of the file, making improvements, removing the bugs yourself because you're such a bad FileMaker developer, which we all know everyone here is, then you remove your own bugs, then you run this process, then it allows you to get your revised version of starting point, your revised version of your solution to your customer's hands faster because you're not having to do all the imports and field alignment and all that. The chances of you making an error and putting a bug into it by accident are greatly limited, right? I mean, think about the tedious of lining up the field definitions of all the fields and starting point. For me or anyone, imagine an engineer with 10 years of combat experience and they're really great. What's the chance of them doing all that perfectly the first time without making a mistake? 0. I don't care if they're Todd Geist and Wim DeCourt and Chris Moyer, top people that I know in the community, right? I pretty much am sure that they would make a mistake on their first pass through there. This thing doesn't make that mistake. And if you use the 360 deploy, it automates it even more for you, right? Makes sense? This isn't about fixing corruption. That is the kind of, I guess at this point, the recover command. We're not really talking about that. This is data migration, moving the data from file A to file B for whatever reason you think is an important. For example, if I crash, so say that you're a really, Jacob Taylor's going to lose it when he sees this, but we keep telling everyone don't use crash files. So of course this show will be over and promptly half of you will go and crash your FileMaker server and then use the crash file. So if you're one of those people, what you need to do is obviously not use the crash file. You would get a clone of a backup. So a backup that was made correctly, that's good. Make a clone of it, bring the data across. Corruption can occur in the schema and it can or occur in the data. So that's the rub with this. So it allows you to kind of resuscitate, someone halfway back to life by, potentially removing the schema corruption because you're going to move the data to a file, the schema that you can validate is good and correct, but the data could be corrupted in there, the data itself. There's a process for cleaning that, cleaning the data corruption. We had to explain this to a number of people. Every day, it seems like someone forgets about this. We have to explain to them. You can go into FileMaker. If I open the mock data generator over here, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to put admin and 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to actually run this because it'll itself. But if you go into context, for example, there are 780,000 contacts. There's millions and millions and millions of records in this thing, okay? And if I want to say that I want to preserve the data somehow or get the data out and clean the data, I'm going to actually do an export records, and I'm going to pick a tab separated or comma separated, one of these in here, not FileMaker file, because that could preserve the corruption. One of these up in here that you like. Merge has limits. It won't output more than like 255 characters on a field. So if you have a field with a text that's a paragraph, it'll truncate that. But like one of these two up here, you output that, the corruption basically gets removed. And if it doesn't get removed, you can pop it open and see it, and you'll have all this really nice column data, and suddenly you have this big block of scrambled. You can go in there and remove it manually if you had to. But yeah, that's it's always a good question.
Code to Go has kind of an example which I'll read out loud. Imagine you have a spreadsheet, importing records in FileMaker is like copying each row of the spreadsheet into a new file. The DMT is like selecting all of the rows and copy pasting into a new file.
Correct. It's a bulk operation, but it's smart because it allows you to change the names of the rows and create new rows. And I could delete a field, right? That I decide is not important anymore, run this process, any data that was in there would not come forward. It's got nowhere to land. That's why the verbose mode over here was so interesting, because it actually says field skipped or table skipped, right? So that's useful in that area, but you could downsize your solution. But a vast majority of developers really don't do a lot of cleanup, right? Like a lot of you don't take out the trash at all. You just like keep packing more crap into your car. I had an engineer one time to come to work for me, and it was only enough room as a 4-seat car. I'm not going to pick on him, but he was like a guy that never would throw anything away. He had a refrigerator in the front right seat so he could take his drinks and sandwiches with him while he was on the road, right? But the car was just packed to the gills. You couldn't see out the windows. He kind of, it's like a 4-seat Honda Accord or something like that, old one, and it was just packed in there. So most developers don't throw things away. So mostly I've been talking about adding or changing the names of things in your destination file. But if you actually are a proactive cleaner and you're getting rid of things you don't need, it's why Starting Point isn't coming today, because we're getting rid of some scripts and some objects and things that are not being used anymore. So we got not referenced. So we're trying to clean some of that out, right? All right. Well, tomorrow is going to be the day when we're going to bring this out and give it to you folks. I think you're going to be, some of you will be excited. Some of you will be like, hey, this is amazingly not so different than the last one. Yeah. So it is It is very similar to the 2022, the Neomorphism design surface, but we have the light versions, the one I like to hang out with for training purposes. Then we have the standard one, which will be the free one, and the enhanced one that you can have if you're part of that paid upgrade. It just has some additional things that are kind of nice. So we'll take questions about that tomorrow. Make sure the team gets it done on time. That would be exciting. So any other questions, Margaret? Stu's
No.
type faster, Stu. I'm about to leave. The plane is on final approach. Flaps 4.
New bug. Looking forward to the new bug-free version. Thanks to the
Landing
DMT
the plane.
discussion.
I need like a steering wheel so I can feel like I'm landing. All right, guys. See ya. Thanks.
Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.